حاضر هذه الأمسية الدكتور بلال فيليبس، المولود في أمريكا الوسطى جامايكا، في حياة بدأت بالإسلام عام 1972 عندما رحل وسكن في كندا. درس في الجامعة الإسلامية بالمدينة المنورة في السنوات ما بين 1974 و 1979 في كلية الدعوة وأصول الدين، ثم ذهب بعدها إلى جامعة الإمام محمد بن سعود الإسلامية لدراسة العقيدة، حيث نال شهادة الماجستير من قسم العقيدة. ثم رحل إلى إنجلند حيث أخذ الدكتوراه أيضا في نفس المجال في قسم العقيدة. درس في الدراسة الإسلامية في الرياض، ورأس قسم الدعوة في إدارة الشؤون الدينية بقيادة القوات الجوية السعودية بالرياض. الآن يرأس الدعوة مركز الدعوة في دبي، ومركز الكتاب الإسلامي في الشارقة، وهو بروفيسور في الشؤون الإسلامية، في تدريس الشؤون الإسلامية في كلية شريف كبنسون، وله كتابات ومؤلفات عديدة جدا تزيد على 500 مؤلف، 15 مؤلف. له برامج تلفزيونية في السعودية وفي الإمارات. الآن بالإنجليزي. Dr. Bilal Phillips was born in Jamaica, and he grew up and went to Canada in 1972. He studied in Islamic University in the years between 1974 and 1979 in Kulliyat al-Da'wah. He received his master's degree from King Saud University in Riyadh in Aqidah. And he got his doctor's degree from University of Wales in England, also in the same Aqidah, He was a teacher of Islamic studies in Riyadh, and he was the head of the department of the Da'wah for the Islamic studies in the Air Force of Saudi Arabia. He is presently the director of the Islamic Da'wah study in Dubai in United Arab Emirates. And he is the leader and director of the Islamic Book Center in Shariqa, also in the United Arab Emirates. He is the professor of the Islamic Studies in the University of Philippines in Kulliyat Sharif Kabinson. He has several books that he authored in both languages, most in English, which are over 15 books. He has some programs which are broadcasted in the Saudi Arabian and United Arab Emirates TV. Today's lecture is going to be about the characteristics of this Ummah, the study of the situation of the Ummah, sickness that grew among the Ummah, and the changes that the Ummah needs in order to succeed. So, فليتفضل فضيلة الدكتور فيليبس، بلال فيليبس.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on His last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. The characteristics of this Ummah are many. However, in this afternoon's presentation, I will look at 4 basic characteristics which Allah spoke about in the Qur'an, about which He specified that this Ummah should have, or does have, or did have. And we'll look after that to what degree the Ummah still maintains these characteristics, and finally how would we regain these characteristics if they are missing. The first characteristic, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 143, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. In that way we have made you a middle or just nation, in order that you be witnesses on mankind. This concept of the middle, the mean, the just nation, this is something which we find supported throughout the Qur'an, wherein Allah commands us to justice, wherein Allah commands us to avoid excesses in the religion, wherein we are commanded to avoid excesses whether in the spending of our wealth or in any other facet of life. So the Muslim Ummah is distinguished by this characteristic of being on the middle path, a path which neither leans to the right or to the left, to one extreme or to the other. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, on one occasion, as reported by Ibn Abbas, drew a line in the sand or in the dust, and then drew lines to the right and to the left, and then pointed out that this path was his, the straight path, that one in the middle. The ones on the left and to the right were the paths which lead to hell. He identified that at the head of each path was a devil calling to it. So this aspect of moderation, of choosing that path which does not include any of the extremes, is something which is unique to this ummah. Unique in that that message remains available to those who seek to know about it in Islam. It is not that this message was unique in the sense that Allah only commanded the final Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to take this path and to call people to this path. In fact, all of the prophets of Allah called to this path. However, with the distortion of their messages, what remains, whether it be Judaism or Christianity, what remains are the extremes. The wasat, the middle path, which were taught by Prophets Musa alayhi salam and Prophet Isa alayhi salam, these have been lost. So it is only with the final ummah that this moderation, this middle path has been maintained. And if we look actually in terms of the beliefs with regards to Isa, for example, which is a key concept in Christianity, we find that for Christians, Isa has been elevated to divinity. He is a god. With the Jews, they have lowered him to the status of being an illegitimate child. These are two extremes. Whereas in Islam, Islam maintains the actual status of Jesus being a noble prophet of Allah, born a virgin birth, but not a god, not partaking in the qualities of divinity in any way, shape, or form. So his status is maintained. And for sure, this was the same status which he taught. He didn't teach other than that. But the other distorted religions, the distortions from Islam, they took the extremes with regards to Prophet Isa. We can also find with regards to other aspects of belief. In the case of belief in the angels, for Christians, They have elevated Angel Gabriel, Jibreel, to a status of being a partner in the Godhead. He is the Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit. Whereas in the case of the Jews, they have reduced some of the angels to the status of being devils. For them, devils are fallen angels, angels who have disobeyed Allah. Whereas from the Islamic perspective, angels do not disobey Allah, nor are they partaking in divinity in any way, shape, or form. The second characteristic, which is mentioned in the Qur'an, is one which Allah ascribes to the Ummah due to certain practices or certain commandments which they fulfill. Allah describes the Ummah as being the best. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. But though Allah describes this Ummah as being the best, there were certain conditions for it being classified as the best. تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. That we command the good, prohibit the evil, and we believe in Allah. These were conditions which, if not fulfilled, then we are not the best. When we look in terms of Christianity and Judaism, the other major ummahs which are of a religious nature, we find that they command the evil and prohibit the good. And though they claim to believe in Allah, they do not really believe in Allah. In the case of Christianity, when we look at their prohibition of marriage for priests, at least the Catholics amongst them, this is prohibiting the good. And when we look in terms of alcohol and pork, etc., things which Allah has defined as being prohibited, containing harm, evil, we find that they have made these things halal. Similarly, amongst the Jews, we find that they, in regards to interest, though they prohibit interest amongst themselves, they make it allowable amongst non-Jews. So the evil that is there, they have made permissible. The evil, because if it is evil for themselves, it must be evil for all of mankind. Evil is not a relative thing. When God prohibited riba or interest, it was prohibited for all of mankind, not just for a segment of mankind. Similarly, when we look, or I should say when we look at Islam, we find consistently throughout of all of the various commands and prohibitions, whatever Allah has prohibited are things which are fundamentally harmful to us. And whatever He has commanded are things which are fundamentally beneficial for us. And as such, the Ummah from its inception actively prohibited and called people to the prohibition of those things which are evil. So much so that Allah calls the evil things the ma'ruf, the munkar, and the good things the ma'ruf, those things that are well known. Though Allah and the Prophet Muhammad had to define certain things for us, in general, the good is well known to mankind. It is, knowledge of it has been placed in the soul of the human being فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. In the very creation of man, Allah had inspired in each and every soul a consciousness of good and of corruption. So it is the system of Islam which puts or gives life to this consciousness. The consciousness alone without any system to guide it into action is useless. What Islam provides is a system by which this consciousness, this innate consciousness which Allah has given us, may be applied in our lives and for our benefit. And we know well that Allah, in speaking of the Jews with regards to Surah Al-Fatiha, He refers to them as Al-Maghdubi alayhim, those on whom is His anger, because of the fact that they knew the good, they knew what was right, and did not command it. So, when Allah describes the Jews in this fashion, He's not doing so for us to develop an attitude towards Jews that the Jews are just evil people and that's, what we extract from the Qur'an. No, when Allah describes the Jews in this fashion, He is warning us that we don't fall into the same trap. That we don't become among those who know the good and don't command it. The third characteristic is that we are one brotherhood. Allah says in Surah Al-Anbiya verse 92, إِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونِ. Verily this ummah, this nation, is one nation, and I am your Lord, so worship me. We are one nation. One nation in the sense that though Allah has divided us with regards to our nationalities, the different parts of the world in which we come, the fact that we have a single Lord, we have all accepted Allah, this is our point of unity, and this is what unites us all in spite of the differences, natural differences which exist amongst us. A oneness. And of course, there are many different other statements from the Qur'an. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Verily the believers are a single brotherhood. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ instructing us that we are like one building, each part supporting the other. All of these concepts are fundamental to the Ummah. They are concepts which Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sought to engender amongst his Sahaba, which they accepted, lived, and sought to convey to those who came after them. The fourth characteristic is that of da'wah. As Allah said in Surah Al-Imran, verse 104, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Let there be from amongst you a group who call to all that is good by commanding righteousness and prohibiting evil. Such are the successful. So this characteristic, one of da'wah, that the message of Islam is to be conveyed to those around us, is a basic characteristic of the Ummah. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, from the beginning, conveyed the message to those around him, to his family, to his community, and ultimately his community conveyed it to the world. And da'wah has with it various responsibilities. The da'wah may be in the form of speech, calling people. Da'wah may take the form of armed struggle, where it becomes necessary. But fundamentally, the Muslim Ummah has a responsibility of conveying the message of Islam to others. So these are the four basic characteristics that I wanted to look at this afternoon. One, of being on the middle path, between the extremes. Two, of being the best by commanding the good and prohibiting the evil. Three, of being a unified body. And four, of conveying the message of Islam to the nations. To what degree does the Ummah today match up to these characteristics? Are we that middle nation? Are we maintaining that moderation? In fact, when we look at the image of Muslims in the world today, it is quite opposite to that. We are identified as extremists. Extremists either with regards to religion, which may be true or false, or extremists with regards to the use of violence to promote our ideals, or what some claim to be our ideals. And all we have to look at is the incidences which occurred within the past years in New York, the bombings which have been attributed to Muslims, to realize that this is the way by which the image of Islam is distorted in the minds of the masses of the people here and elsewhere. It's distorted by extremes. Either extremes in this sense of seeking to destroy America, where Muslims are identified as those whose sole purpose or sole goal here is to destroy this country, or that we are racists, and Farrakhan represents the tool by which that other extreme is promoted. Farrakhan, who promotes the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, which claims that God is a black man, all colored peoples are gods, and all white peoples are devils. This kind of belief, this kind of distortion and extreme concepts, these are what are promoted as the Islamic beliefs. This is why usually when any of us informs the average American that we are Muslim, they assume automatically that we are followers of Farrakhan. Now, how do we resolve this? How do we change this? One, we have to utilize the media to convey the correct image of Islam. The media is exploited by the enemies of Islam to distort that image. There's a lot that we can do, even though the media truly is not in our hands, but it is not so closed that positive Islamic information cannot be channeled through that media to reach people, whether it be the television or the radio or newspapers, magazines, etc. It is our responsibility to try to correct as much as we can of these distortions which exist with regards to Muslims being extremists. with regards to the religion where extremism or fundamentalism is an accusation, a false accusation for those who seek to stick to the principles of the religion, then we have to promote that this sticking to the fundamentals is not something which is extreme. It is something which is desirable. It is something which will provide for society a stable moral base. We can show that the situation in America, where morals are deteriorating with every decade, major changes are taking place in the moral fabric of the society, that it's because of the fact that the fundamental principles which of morality, which were a part of Christianity, are not being upheld. People are not sticking to those fundamentals. Whereas in the case of Islam, it is not an option that people may stick to or not stick to, or it may be modified as time goes on, but it is a part and parcel of Islam which cannot be separated. There is no way, there will never come a time from the Muslim perspective that we would ever accept homosexuality as an alternative lifestyle. Never. There's no way, no time when we would ever accept free sex as an option, people having relationships without marriage as being an option in society. These things we have to stand up for. Unfortunately, our voice isn't heard in this society. But if we stood up for it, you can be certain that there are many people in America who would respect Islam for this, because they see what is happening to the society, and they see that Christianity has no role in correcting and saving the morals of the society. They would highly respect those who stand firm, because of course in this society, if you stand up and challenge homosexuality, this is like a political death sentence. If you have a job in any kind of governmental circles, etc., you will be finished. So it is for Muslims to stand firm, that their principles be known in the society, that they are those who command the good and they oppose the evil, and their good and evil is not changing with time. The evil is the evil and the good is the good. And of course, we have to promote along with that the essence, what causes us to command this good and prohibit the evil, is our belief in Allah, our belief in God. That we are opposed to the secularist trend of this society, where religion is totally divorced from society and it becomes a personal, individual choice. And it is this process of secularization which has led to the moral decay of the society. And that the Islamic program wherein the moral values of religion remain as a part of the fabric of the whole society, that this is an ideal which should be striven for. We have to show that there is a distinction between the religious state in Islam and the religious state in Christianity. Because people coming out of the effects of religious control of Christianity have taken a negative approach to any religious control, because Christianity was distorted. Its control was one which became oppressive. There was good in it, but much of it was oppressive, because it contradicted science and it sought to crush minds, to keep minds trapped within a particular framework. Whereas from the Islamic perspective, there is no contradiction between real science and Islam. Islam doesn't seek to crush the human mind. It seeks to free it. And this is why science prospered within the realms of the Islamic states. So we have to promote this alternative. The alternative to degeneration, that of moral stability, and the alternative to secular education, that of morally guided, divinely guided education. Of course, when we speak here, we have to also look back at the home Muslim countries. And to be honest, what we find is a state of affairs where secularism has taken root in Muslim countries. And they are as much and as far away from the morally guided Islamic state as America. Or perhaps maybe even morality to some degree may be better here in some areas than it is in our own home countries. So that quality of being the best has been lost. The Muslim Ummah today is the worst. They are the most backwards, poor, etc., etc., etc. All of the evils of corrupt society, un-Islamic society, whether it be prostitution, drugs, etc., etc., these things can be found in Muslim lands. And as such, diseases like AIDS, which technically speaking should never spread in a Muslim land, wherein Muslims are not engaged in extramarital affairs for the most part, yet in Muslim countries, in Muslim communities, such diseases are spreading. This is showing that our commanding of the good within our home countries and prohibiting the evil has fallen into a state of negligence. Muslims are not commanding the good, not prohibiting the evil. And furthermore, when we even look at the foundation of it all, we have to question, who are they believing in? Are they believing in Allah? Instead, when we go in the Muslim world, though people say they're believing in Allah, their version of belief in Allah is not too much different from the version of the Christians. Either they've elevated Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to a status where they are praying to him, they've given him divine attributes, or they've elevated other human beings who are called saints, who become intermediaries between them and God. Graves are in masjids. People are praying to other than Allah. So, naturally, with that foundation missing, the calling to the good, the prohibition of evil is not being implemented. And that can only be resolved by bringing people back to the belief in Allah. To become the best of mankind, we have to go back to the belief in Allah. Because belief in Allah means believing in Allah as He should be believed in. Not merely knowing Allah, knowing who Allah is, but believing in Him as He should be believed in. So those who pray through intermediaries or pray to others besides Allah, though they may say they believe in Allah, we do not consider this to be belief in Allah. This is why when the Quraysh offered a deal to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that they would worship Allah along with him for 1 year, if he would worship their gods along with them for 1 year, Allah had him tell them, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. O you disbelievers, I do not worship what you worship. Because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Muslims can only worship one God then there is no way that they could be involved in the worship of any other god along with that god. If they're involved in worship of other gods, then they're no longer worshiping that one God. And this is why Prophet ﷺ also was instructed to go on to say, وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, that you all are not worshipping what I worship. Even though you may join in your worship, join with me in the worship of Allah, as long as you are worshipping your God, you are not worshipping what I worship. So, when Allah describes the best of nations as having the quality of believing in Allah, وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, this is believing in Allah as He should be believed in. And this has to be returned to the Ummah. And from that basis, then the good can properly be commanded and the evil can properly be prohibited. The third quality, the oneness of the Ummah. We see from the legacy of colonialism that the Ummah has been torn into pieces. And prior to that, we saw various nationalisms arising, whether it was Arab nationalism or whether it was Turkish nationalism, arising at various points to weaken the Ummah. Nationalism, which has no place in Islam, has become the status quo for Muslim countries. Everybody has a national flag, a national day, and a national anthem. And everybody feels strong about that national flag. In the eyes of most Muslims today, if I were to burn the Algerian flag, Algerians were involved in the Algerian struggle, or Afghanis were involved in the Afghani struggle, or Pakistanis or whoever. If I take any of their flags and I burn their flags, even the most religious people will feel hurt that I'm burning their flag. Really. I mean, this is something, it's a symptom, there's a sickness there. Because this flag has taken on a meaning. They have been raised with such a love for it. It has taken on a meaning that this quality now has affected their perception, in spite of the fact that they have committed themselves to Islam and trying to but this love is still there, a strong love. And until Muslims are able to remove that from their hearts, remove those feelings of nationalism from their hearts, then the Ummah cannot come together. This has to be attacked from its root. It has no place. Our nationality is Islam. Though we may be born in different countries, we may speak different languages, we may look or have different characteristics in terms of physical characteristics. However, these are characteristics which are handed down to us from one father and one mother. And that's the bottom line. Our language needs to be again Arabic. The common language should be the language of Muslims, Arabic. When Arabic stopped being spread amongst Muslims as the national languages, you found now a basis for the other nationalisms to arise. This is why the colonial powers were very, very, deliberate in their stopping that spread, causing the peoples who used to, Arabic languages, the people of North Africa, for example, and into Lebanon and these other places, Sudan and so on, their original languages were not Arabic. They had their own languages. However, when Islam spread to these areas and the Islamic superstructure was set up over the countries, the people in the course of dealing with the rulers and those in administration, to communicate with them, they would adopt some Arabic words in their own language as a means of communication, because they'll be using these common words. They became eventually a part of their language. And their own languages they started to write in Arabic script. And eventually, as more and more words were absorbed into the languages evolved into Arabic. You can see even till today certain languages that are different stages of that process. However, when the colonial powers stepped in, you find them making those countries write their languages in Latin script. This is part of that process, to ensure that the Arabic, the writing in Arabic, which was a means of helping the languages turn over into Arabic languages, stopped. You know, languages like Malay, of Malaysia and Indonesia, this was written in Arabic. Even still to today, some older generation people still know how to write it. But the majority of people, when they're writing the Malay language in Indonesia and in Malaysia today, and Indonesia is the largest in terms of numbers of Muslims, largest country in the Muslim world, they write in Latin script. Similarly with Hausa in West Africa and Swahili in East Africa. These are all languages which were written in Arabic script. Turkish in Turkey used to be written in Arabic script. Now these are all written in Latin. So Arabic needs to be revived. The importance of learning of Arabic in Muslim countries, in various Muslim areas, this has to be revived. That it be a second or first language wherever possible, but in any case Muslims should again regain that as their common language. I mean, we have it still in terms of salah, but there is not in terms of communication. This is why you'll find masses of people in Indonesia and in Philippines and all these other countries, in Pakistan, who may know how to read the Qur'an in terms of the Arabic script, because it's tradition that every parent teaches their child, to read the Qur'an, or they bring somebody into their home, they teach them to read the Qur'an. However, it is only parroting the letters of the Qur'an. So the message of the Qur'an is not being conveyed. They only go as far as being able to say the words of the Qur'an, but the meaning is lost, because Arabic doesn't have a role in the society in terms of communication. It is not a second language even. So there is great harm. Not only does the loss of Arabic as a second or first language among Muslims have the effect of breaking up the Ummah, giving a fertile ground to feelings of nationalism and tribalism, but further it serves to break people away from the fundamental source of Islam, the Qur'an. So it is very vital for Muslims in planning a strategy for the future that Arabic be a major part of that strategy of redeveloping Muslim society, bringing Muslims back to Islam, as well as a concerted effort to oppose feelings of nationalism, the symbols of nationalism, wherever they may appear. The fourth principle, that of da'wah, here in America, or I should say before going to the fourth principle, we should look at also the effects of nationalism on the Ummah here in America. That we have two communities, the indigenous community and the Arab community, when in fact it is only one, and it should only be one, but we have two. And so we have these questions raised. How should Arabs communicate with the indigenous people? How should the indigenous people communicate with the Arabs? This is something which should not be. Now there are problems from both sides that need to be resolved. And we have to approach this issue of this division or this separation between the two communities, which goes beyond language. It's not just because these people are Arabic speaking and these people are English speaking, this is where that division lies. No. It goes beyond that. It goes into actual culture. The cultural approaches, it's as if there are two different cultures here, when in fact we as Muslims have a common culture. I mean, we may have other individual customs from the areas that we are raised, etc. But there is a common culture, a common Islamic culture that we share, which should bring us together. And these differences are minor; they don't play a major role. But unfortunately, today there isn't that common Islamic culture isn't there. And what we find instead are the customs. They have taken the place. The customs of the Americans and the customs of the Arabs, cause them to be as if two different groups altogether. And the establishment of Islam here in America will not take place in individual communities. We will not be able to establish Islam here as ethnic communities. Islam has to be established in accordance with that oneness of brotherhood. That our brothers, regardless of their background, because their commitment is to the establishment of Islam, to pleasing Allah, then they will make whatever sacrifices are necessary to come together and to try to do this together. But right now, our situation is that our Arab brothers, generally speaking, they like to live in the suburbs, and they build their masjids in the suburbs, far away from the masses of the Muslims who tend to be in the inner cities. Okay? Now, of course, the inner cities are areas of high crime, and at the same time, it's very unfair for our Muslim brothers in inner cities to expect the other brothers, the Arab brothers, to put their children in a circumstance where they'll be exposed to, high crime or drugs, etc. So what we need here is some kind of meeting point, a middle point, which is not inner city and which is not far out in the boondocks, suburbs, right? Some middle point here, where we can have a masjid accessible and where our communities can be built. But we both have to recognize that these desires that we have, or the circumstances under which we live, these we have to take into account and be prepared to make what sacrifices are necessary to bring together that unified community. Because though truly the homes that are in the far out suburbs may be palatial, very beautiful and having all these facilities, and the homes which are closer to the inner city tend to be much more humble and not so and so, we have to consider, is really it more important for us to have a palatial home and all of our neighbors are all non-believers, or is it better to have a modest home and all of our neighbors are believers? This is what we have to consider. And when we consider certain Muslim figures who have been killed here in America, people like Ismail Farouqi and others, when you go to look to see where they were living in the middle of Jewish neighborhoods far away from the center of the city. So they were stabbed to death, they're screaming at the top of their lungs and nobody would come to their aid. So it is not surprising. Similarly, if we have schools and masjids that are not in a Muslim community, then whenever anything happens in the Muslim world, anything which is displeasing to Americans which happen in the Muslim world, then the masjids and the schools become targets. They're broken into, spray painted and all these kind of things. So Muslims have to find that meeting ground, that middle point. Muslims from both so-called communities who are committed or who feel that there is a requirement here of establishing Islam, they have to plan some kind of strategy which is practical and which may be acceptable to those Muslims who really want to do something here to establish a truly Islamic community as an example to the rest of Muslims here in the country, as well as outside of the country, as well as to the non-Muslims here. So the issues of nationalism, the split up of the Ummah, we suffer from here. And we will continue to suffer from these problems until we tackle them head on, until we recognize them for what they are and we tackle them relentlessly. The fourth principle of da'wah calling to Allah, which was manifest throughout the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which was manifest in the lives of the prophets in general, the Sahaba, the companions of the prophets. It's something which today we find lacking in the Muslim world. Muslim communities where Muslims are various minorities, for example in India, you have a Muslim minority that's someplace around 120 million. I mean, if you can call it a minority, but it's a minority because the total population there is someplace around 800 million. So it is a minority. But it's 120 million. But that 120 million has no effect on that society. Virtually no effect in terms of propagation of Islam. When you travel throughout the country there, masjids are dead. Many places. I mean, I traveled personally to New Delhi and Hyderabad and Calcutta, etc. And these places, you go into masjids, you hardly find people inside there. And the Hindus that they live among, or the Sikhs or whatever, Muslims are not involved in any way in terms of propagation. Virtually. In fact, what you find is Muslims will have their beliefs mixed up with these people's beliefs. They will share, you have tombs of Muslims, so-called Muslim saints, that Hindus will come to for barakah. Hindus and Muslims will come to, they both share, trying to get barakah from these graves. It's so mixed up. Very, very little da'wah going on. I can't say absolutely none, because I'm sure there are some in some states, brothers have told me in Kerala and others, there's stronger da'wah going on. But in general, from what I observed, it is virtually non-existent. Virtually non-existent. And this is throughout the Muslim world, wherever there are Muslim minorities, or wherever there are non-Muslim minorities in countries, there is no process of da'wah going on. And this is also reflected here by those people who are muhajirin or immigrants who have come here, who are here to study, etc. Da'wah amongst them, for the most part, is very weak. They will live their lives, come here, study for so many years, and go back without ever saying Islam to anybody around them. And this is one of the reasons why the devils, agents of the devils, were able to promote and to spread false Islam here. Because there was a vacuum. Those who came, of course, fundamentally they didn't come for the sake of Allah. So I guess we cannot really expect that they're going to come with da'wah. But inshallah, if they feared Allah, where is this fear of Allah? Where is this? But then the countries that they came from, they were not raised with a consciousness of a mission, that each and every Muslim has a duty to not only practice Islam, but to convey it to others. They were not raised with that consciousness, so naturally they came here. Islam is their personal, private religion. In fact, what you even find in many places where Muslims from the local population come into Islam, the Muslims, they start to look at them, what does this person want now, they look at them very with distrust, that they are coming into Islam because they want something. They are not looked at as being real Muslims. You find it sometimes expressed in different societies, And this is a big mistake. A big mistake. Right now, the major effort of da'wah is being shouldered by the indigenous Muslims. However, the population of immigrant Muslims is equal to, if not more, than the indigenous Muslims. And their responsibility here in America is just as great. You see, there's a tendency to say, how can, it is the responsibility really of the Americans, these American converts, it's their responsibility to spread Islam. Maybe we can try to help them, if we have a chance, we have some spare time, whatever, we try to help them. But it's their responsibility. No. It is the responsibility of everyone who is here. Because fundamentally, being here has no justification unless one is involved in da'wah. Muslim scholars traditionally, based on statements of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with regards to one who dies amongst the disbelievers, that he absorbs himself from them. Hijrah being compulsory for Muslims. It was inconceivable that a Muslim would make hijrah from a Muslim land, from a community of Muslims, and go to live amongst the kuffar. Unless he is going to trade and come back, this is business, something like this. Or he's going to spread Islam. But to just go and live and be amongst them, marry amongst them and be like them and etc. No. It was inconceivable in the past. However, today it's the norm. When, in fact, those who refuse to convey the message, who come here and do not convey that message, are cursed by Allah. Allah curses them in the Qur'an. إن الذين يكتمون ما أنزلنا من البينات والهدى من بعد ما بيناه للناس في الكتاب أولئك يلعنهم الله ويلعنهم اللاعنون. And verily those who hide what we have revealed from the scriptures and guidance after we have made it clear to them in the book, such are cursed by Allah and cursed by all who curse. They're cursed by Allah. Kitmanul ilm. This means not just that you are deliberately, an American comes to you and asks you, what is Islam? You say, I don't want to tell you. That people think, well, this is kitman, this is your hiding. No. For you to just live, go to work and come back home, you sit on the bus, you live in this society here and you do not tell people about Islam. This is hiding the knowledge. This is living a life of kitmanul ilm. You are living it. And in fact, many of us coming here have adopted the characteristics of the people here so that people cannot distinguish between ourselves. So a person could say, at least, I am calling people to Islam by my character. Maybe my language is not so good, but I am a good example. When I'm in my workplace, people see a difference between me and the others. When the people indulge in vile talk, etc., etc., I don't indulge in it. When they pass around, booze or whatever, I don't take part. When the boss is not present on the job, I don't slack off like everybody else. So there is nothing which distinguishes me from them. In fact, maybe I become more dishonest. You find Muslims prepared to cheat and to steal and to do all these kind of things to get ahead in this society, because getting ahead, being successful and gaining money is the goal. So they, by any means necessary, they'll do it. So they become known. I know when I traveled through Central America, the Muslims, they nicknamed them the Burning Turks, because they are known that whenever their businesses were running down, they would set them on fire and collect insurance. This is what they were known for. Known for dishonesty. For the opposite was that when Muslims first left, the centers of Islam and went to the other parts of the world, they were known for their honesty. And this is what caused Islam to spread. Where else would you find a businessman who is selling you a product and telling you what is wrong with it? This is something unheard of. This caused people to wonder, what leads these people to do this? Not cheating with the scales, but giving the full right to those who are buying. But today, Muslims turn people away from Islam by their own un-Islamic character and are not involved in general in da'wah to the people around them. They don't feel it is their responsibility even. So, because of that, they do not have the characteristic of being the best of nations. They are not fulfilling their responsibility. So they are the cursed among nations. They are suffering. The nations have gathered upon them like dogs at a platter, tearing them apart. Because all of the characteristics which Allah has specified as being the main characteristics of Muslims, they do not possess. So how then can we expect Allah's help? We say in Tansurullah yansurkum, as Allah said. However, who amongst us is helping the religion of Allah? Who is trying to really practice that religion in the Muslim world? It is so few, having such a weak effect that we should not really be surprised that Allah's help doesn't come. Instead, what we find is that the mass of Muslims, they have become like the Jews and the Christians, believing that paradise is their birthright. Paradise is their birthright. As Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, كُلُّ أُمَّتِي يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ, all of my nation will enter paradise. And that's where they stop. Every Muslim is going to paradise. So as long as you're Muslim, you're going to paradise. If you're a non-Muslim, you're not going to paradise. And this is what Muslims now are passing on, have passed on for generations now, inherited. That paradise is the birthright of the Muslims. However, when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that, he put a condition. He said, إِلَّا مَنْ أَبَى, except for he who refuses. Of course, when he said that, the companions asked, وَمَنْ أَبَى يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, who would refuse? O Messenger of Allah, who would refuse to go to paradise? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, مَنْ أَطَاعَنِي دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ, whoever obeys me enters paradise. وَمَنْ عَصَانِي فَقَدْ أَبَى, and whoever disobeys me has refused. That is the bottom line. So paradise is not a birthright. It is the birthright. It is the right of those who obey the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who live in accordance to the Sunnah, the Qur'an and the Sunnah, as understood by the early generations of righteous Muslims. It is their right. This is what Allah has promised for them alone. So Muslims, unfortunately, have been deluded, do not understand that paradise is something which has to be earned. Islam is something which has to be chosen. It is not something which is inherited, and paradise is not something which is a birthright. Inshallah, I hope that Muslims from this conference, all of us, would seek to revive these characteristics in the Ummah, to work concertedly towards this goal, to revive these characteristics, to call people to these characteristics, to not only understand them on the theoretical level, but to apply them within our own lives. And if we don't do it, then we have no right to paradise. We need to know this. We need to remind our brothers and sisters of this, that paradise is not our birthright. It is only for those who have followed the way that Allah has granted us through His final Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
We would like to thank Dr. Bilal Phillips for his lecture, and we ask that Allah reward him and be addition to his deeds, inshallah, and that what we learned today be a benefit to our knowledge, and that we also apply that knowledge, inshallah. We have about 10 minutes left for questions. If anyone has any questions, make them short and basic, because there's not a lot of time left.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I have two questions. One question is, what do you think about the nation of Islam in America? And the other question I heard from one alim of this Ummah. He said the da'wah should be in Arabic language or in Qur'an language, because he said if the da'wah make the da'wah in English language or any language, how the people they enter Islam, how do you know the Arabic language? And his evidence in Surah Al-Ahzab, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حاميم والكتاب المبين إنا أنزلناه قرآن عربي لعلكم تعقلون وجزاك الله خير.
With regard to the second question, Allah sent prophets in the language of the people to whom they were sent. This is a fundamental and basic principle. Da'wah, if you're going to call a people to Islam, you can only call them in the language that they understand. So though Arabic has to remain the basis of the knowledge, when you're communicating with a people, you must communicate in the language of the people. I mean, this is common sense. It doesn't require an alim to tell us or not tell us. You know, for you to stand up, on television and talk to people all about Islam in Arabic, what is this going to do for them? I think you've misunderstood what the alim intended.
Because he said you cannot translate the Quran language to another language 100%.
Of course, we cannot translate the Qur'an. We can translate the meanings of Qur'an. The tafsir, we can translate. The tafsir gives you the clarification of what is intended by the text, the Quranic text, which cannot be translated. But that meaning can be translated, so the idea can be conveyed. And if you think that Arabic, it is only through Arabic that da'wah can be done, then what are you saying of the vast majority of the Muslim world that became Muslims without Arabic being used? What do you say of, perhaps 3 million, indigenous American Muslims who were called into Islam not through Arabic? You see, the thing is, I think maybe you've misunderstood what he is intended. Because anybody who reads the Qur'an, wherein Allah speaks about warners and prophets being sent in the language of the people, it is obvious that for da'wah, it has to be. If Prophet Muhammad, he was raised amongst the Arabs, and Arabic was the language in which he spoke to the people. If he spoke to them in Hebrew instead, and Hebrew is a language of revelation. Hebrew is a language of revelation. The Torah, the Zabur, the Injil was, or maybe not the Injil, but the Zawrah and the Zabur and the Torah, sorry. These were in Hebrew, but if Prophet ﷺ were to try to convey that message to the Arabs in Hebrew, it would be nonsensical. So Allah chose Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and his language was Arabic, and he sent him initially to the Arabic speaking peoples. He didn't send him elsewhere, have him leave Arabia and go to Palestine or go to Rome to talk to Romans who are speaking Latin, because it would be pointless. So da'wah in America must be in English. This is the language of the people. However, we always, when we are explaining to people, for example, the Qur'an and the miracle of the Qur'an, etc., we always have to emphasize to them that this miracle is in the Arabic Qur'an, because that is the only Qur'an, the Arabic Qur'an. What is in English is only a translation of the meanings.
Jazakallah khair, ya Sheikh. I have a comment to add to what our brother said here. If I'm not mistaken, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he sent Salman al-Farisi to explain to Faris, to explain the Islam in Farisi. So I think one of the proofs that we can take that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent for da'wah a Faris speaker. So that's a comment added to what he said. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين. السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Brother Bilal, Jazakallah khairan. You have made clear the problems of the muhajirs, us, those of us who came here from the Muslim world, and the problems the Muslims who accepted Islam in here are facing. It's clear. But I don't know, I came late if you mentioned the role of the Imam in here, because I have been involved in the dawah field and I know what you're saying is clear and practical. But what is the role of the Imams here? I mean, that represents a big problem in North America. Imams don't play the role they were supposed to play to breach the gaps. And most of the institutions in here are run by one organization or another. And they are run like a business sometimes, unfortunately. And that plays a role because people who are qualified to convey or give classes are not allowed because they don't fit in that psyche which exists in that specific environment. So I would like if you can comment on that. Jazakallah khair.
Well, I think you made the comment, it's just for me to agree with what you've observed, that, for sure, the masjids and the imams, those involved in administration, etc., are not fulfilling the roles, the proper roles that should be fulfilled with regards to these characteristics of the Muslim Ummah. We find issues of, ethnocentricity, where you have I know in Canada, in Toronto, we have Bangladeshi masjid, and we have a Croatian masjid, and we have masjids which are known, like all the people from this group, the Arab masjid, and this is the Somali masjid, and this is terrible. This is terrible. This is musibah for Muslims, really. It's a calamity that we should have this kind of situation. Whereas the masjid is for Allah, and those who are in the administration and those who are in the leadership, the imams or whatever, they should be promoting that interaction between the various groups and, downplaying these, nationalistic divisions wherein masjids become known to one particular country or another.
There's no time for the rest of the questions. We have one last question over here about what is it, dear brother, we would like to thank you, and we want to ask you about the Muslims who immigrate and come to this country. Should they go back to where the Muslim countries they came from, even though they might face some hardships?
No, I was not proposing that they should go back. We know that practically speaking, many people, or some people fled hardships, and also some people have settled here now, and children are raised here and so and so. However, one has to look at one's situation honestly, because one has an obligation to family. If one is not able to change the circumstances in which they live, which are un-Islamic circumstances, then it is their duty to get out of those circumstances. So my suggestion is that people should be about changing or trying to change the existing circumstances, trying to create environments where Islam can actually take root. Because if they're not about doing that, then to stay here is haram. To just live a comfortable American life. I'm just an American. I just want to be like everybody else. That kind of a thing for a Muslim just to accept and to go ahead and to live under this situation is haram for a Muslim. Because it means accepting so much which is against Islam. Compromising so much in the religion. That such a state is one that the Prophet ﷺ absolved himself of. So it is our duty for those of us who want to stay, which is the vast majority who have chosen to stay, then they should justify their presence. It is justified by attempting to establish Islam here in a real sense, not just in a cultural sense, that you maintain certain cultural things. You know, in your home you maintain a cultural thing, your family is aware that you are from this cultural background, and you know, so you have a cultural continuity, but no, an Islamic continuity, that your children will be raised as Muslims and will raise other generations of Muslims instead of running away from Islam, which is the case now. How many thousands of Muslim youths are away from Islam? I mean, I could just see for myself. Yesterday I had a talk with the young children, the children of people who are here in this gathering. Inshallah, the people who are here in the gathering are the more Islamically aware and concerned of the people of this area. And yet, when I asked the children of the gathering, what was the book of Revelation given to Prophet Moses, Prophet Musa, they couldn't answer. What was the book of Revelation given to Prophet Dawood? They couldn't answer. The one given to Prophet Isa, they couldn't answer. I mean, this is something so basic. It is showing that obviously these children, in spite of parents' concern, they're here and so and so, certain basic, very, very basic pieces of knowledge is not available to them. They haven't understood, they don't know. Imagine what their situation is going to be when they grow up in this society.
To make it quick,
Jazakallah khair. Brother, Jazakallah khair, Bilal, you mentioned about a very good point, which is getting involved in the media. Even though the media is on the hand of the kuffars, we have to, you say, we have to try to change the negative attitude by, getting involved in the televisions and magazines. Brother, my question is, what will you suggest or recommend in this kind of environment, and how can we get involved in such an act? Jazakumullah khair.
Well, among the things, we have public television, right? Public television, which is free, doesn't cost you anything to use their time. Of course, it doesn't have the wide access that, say, NBC or CBS, whatever has. However, it is a start. But if we're going to do it, we should do it professionally. Means we shouldn't just go in there and just stick some little pieces here and there together. No, if we're going to do it, we should have our people who are professionally trained in the process of preparing video materials, etc. for these broadcasts. But we can use public television. This is one channel. Radio is not as expensive. Getting time, getting an hour, getting half an hour, I mean, people are trying it in different areas, but we should be involved in it at a much, grander and greater scale. Getting the word out, of Islam out, So, I mean, inshallah, that is something which I'm sure, certain workshops, have been set aside for, I think, to discuss in more depth. There is one of the brothers right now in the conference here who is proposing, and they're in the process of getting together this concept of developing a series of programs for the public broadcasting stations, and they're trying to work out a network across the country, not to just do it in one state, but because each state has their own, so to prepare materials that can be shown throughout the states. This could reach a very, very wide audience. This is an area which just remains untapped. Very, very basic, very simple, low cost. So this is just one example, and there are many. Inshallah.
Once again, there's no time, brother, sorry. Once again, we would like to thank brother Dr. Bilal Phillips, and we ask Allah to reward him for his great lecture. And there will be a 1 hour rest, and 4:30 the rest of the sessions, the dawrat, will begin. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله